Hey BookTube, I'm here with this lovely stack of books that I was not going to attempt to hold up at least to go over my summer reading wrap up. And it's a lot of books, so I'm going to go pretty quickly, but I would like to comment my definition of summer is May through August. And also kind of September because it's really hot here, but for the sake of the sheer volume of books, because there's a lot that are not in this stack, May through August. So it's like quite a bit of books and quite a bit of reading, but it is also 3 months, and this is definitely the most productive part of my reading year. This year especially, in a long time, because I've not read this many books this quickly in a long time. And I think part of that's because I did a lot of traveling. So a lot of sitting on airplanes and stuff like that. Also, there's a dog walking around out of frame, so don't mind leash noises and things like that. But I read 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 28, or 28 or 29 books this summer, which is crazy. I'm officially, for the first time, not behind on my Goodreads reading challenge, so that's super exciting. I'm going to go through the ones that are not in this stack first, because I'm not going to edit the video. Y'all should know this, that I'm lazy by now. But I read The Scientist and the Spy by Maya, with a very hard to say last name, and that was about kind of the research industrial complex we have in this country versus other countries, and what people that don't have access to our resources and our research will do to acquire it, in the form of agricultural research for this book. Then I read Persepolis Rising, Tiamat's Wrath, and Leviathan Falls by James S. A. Corey, which is the last 3 books of the Expanse series. They were incredible. I loved that book series so much, and I'm probably going to do a whole Expanse video at some point, so I'm going to just talk about it then. But those 3 books happen after the show ends, and the show has not been canceled, just in case people are curious on that. There's a 20-year time jump between book 6 and book 7. So, with that, it is the same characters, but it is a very different, not a very different story, but they're, at different phases of their life and stuff like that. Also, I don't have up there Red Team, How to Succeed by Thinking Like the Enemy by Micah. I did not take a very good picture of my Goodreads, so I can't read the last name. Sorry about that. Good nonfiction book related to my job, so good to know. My friend is borrowing my copy of Book Lovers by Emily Henry, and that was a great book. I really enjoyed it, and I really related to the female main character, where it's me and my job and my career and my life is currently, in this phase of my life, more important than any man or any relationship and things like that. So I kind of definitely understood her struggles with finding love and finding all of that, because people weren't always willing to accept that she was going to chase her dreams first. And yeah, I know relationships have compromised, but I liked how it ended up working out for her. And it was a just generally good, happy summer story. I read the same friend also has Outlawed by Anna North. I was really disappointed in that book. I really wanted it to be a roving gang of women, outlaw gang of women that were doing outlaw cowboy stuff, kind of like the show that was on Netflix. I don't remember what the name of it is right now, but where they the women defeat and conquer and all that. And it was a good premise for a story, but it didn't do what I wanted it to do. But I've heard a lot of people like it, so if you do, no shame in that at all. Up there is also not Shabumi by Trevanian, which was an interesting book about the most famous assassin in the world, fictitious assassin in the world. And I wish the book spent more time on how he became the assassin, because you kind of see you see his early childhood, and then you see him after retirement. You don't see all of the assassin work in the middle, what I would say is the more adventurous adventurous, dramatic side. You kind of just see him like being drawn out of retirement for one final mission, which was cool, but like I was hoping for a little bit more in that. I also read Atlas 6. The roommate got home, so I had to chat with them for a few minutes, but it also gave me a chance to fill up my coffee. And look how cute this mug is that my coworker bought me. It's like a beautiful book mug. The only qualm with it is that there's metal clearly in the handle and around up here. It's gold. So no microwaving, but we were talking about Atlas 6 before I got interrupted. Atlas 6 was really fun. I really liked the premise and the whole magical school experience. I loved Harry Potter, but I am obviously trying to not say that that's the only in the supreme like version of a magical school you could do. And I really liked the Atlas 6 premise where like they were a little bit older and there was more drama, more intrigue. A bigger thing was going on beyond just the magic school. The magic school itself was great. And I'm excited for book 2 whenever it decides to come out. Let me take a sip of this. What's next? Also not in this stack up here is Eye of the Storm by Jack Higgins. I DNF'd it. I think that's the only book I did not finish this summer. It just wasn't where I was at. It was like a military intrigue book, and it was just a lot, so I wasn't feeling it at the time. I also read Dana Perino's Everything Will Be Okay. She was the public relations, there's a better title than that person, for one of the Bush presidencies, and also is a anchor on one of the Fox shows, which I did skim over some of the more aggressively conservative portions of the book, but the book itself was like a lot of advice she gave to young women starting off their careers in the workforce. This dog is having its moment. Let me go let him outside. But I thought a lot of the advice she gave for like women starting out their careers and like maintaining integrity is the most important thing, and working harder than everybody else is really important as well. So I thought a lot of the advice she gave was actually very helpful. And lastly, not on the stack of books over here, is I have read Skyward and Starsight, and I'm going to finish Cytonic today. The third book in the Skyward trilogy by Brandon Sanderson. It's his young adult sci-fi-ish book series. So if I finish Cytonic before I finish editing this video, I'll come back in with a comment on it. But I loved Skyward. Starsight was really good as well, but it just took me away, and I haven't read anything from Brando Sando in a while. I've been wanting to reread The Way of Kings back here, but I'm trying to wait a little bit longer, so by the time I start rereading those, I will, if I read them slowly, all 4 books, the 5th one will be out in like 2 years. So I really enjoyed it a lot. I've been doing the audiobook. The performance is outstanding, and I definitely recommend giving them a read if you like his adult work. It's definitely, it's not like other YA fantasy books where it's like not quite the same, not as good. I really love it. It's awesome. And it's like a flight school situation, and like humanity's trapped on this planet being attacked by aliens, and then like the universe expands so much more than that, and I can't really get into it without massive spoilers, but that's what those book series are so far, and I'm probably going to finish Skyward today on my drive. So that is all of the books, or sorry, I'm going to finish Titanic on my drive today. That's all the books not in this stack, I believe. Oh, one more. I read Long Way Down, which is by Jason Reynolds, which is a story in verse. And that was super interesting to read. I read it in like one sitting. It was super, super, super fast, super easy, but it's essentially like the story of this kid whose brother gets killed in gang-related violence, I believe, or just shot on the street. Some like really terrible way to just be doing your thing and then die. And so he essentially gets on this elevator from like where their apartment is in the city, and has like a gun. He's going to go kill the person he thinks killed his brother, and every floor he goes down, he has like another interaction with somebody someone who was subjected to like city-related violence in the same way that his brother ultimately was. All the way down at the very bottom, he like actually gets to interact with like a version of his brother, and it's just really interesting. It's like very sad, and it was a very good read. I recommend it for sure. I'm gonna now go over here, and we're gonna just go from what I can grab. So I reread The Beast. I reread Count of Monte Cristo. I did an audiobook because I've been wanting to reread this for a while because it's one of my favorite books, and it's one of my favorite books that I haven't reread. I've reread most of what I consider to be my favorite books at least 2 times. So like I needed to get this one get it done again. I didn't have time to sit down and read this, but just book appreciation. Like, look at her. She's gorgeous. She's gorgeous. So I did learn that I did not realize that I read the abridged version of the book the first time, because there was so much stuff that like I didn't get to see. I thought when they abridged the book, they just took out some of the stuff from the prison, which also was awesome, and I'm glad I got to read it now. But like this book still is incredible. It's the ultimate revenge story. It's not a perfect happy ending, and I think it's about more than just revenge, which it's about like understanding when your revenge is like the revenge actions you're taking are they cause irreparable damage to innocent parties and things like that. And it's also about like when you don't forgive someone for something that wasn't like a more innocent party in the group, when you don't forgive someone for like something like that, like you're less happy for it in the long run. And that's like Edmond Dantes has to learn that along his journey. And it's also just it's a great like rags to riches story. It's an awesome time. I know it's long. Honestly, like if you're scared of length of this, the Barnes & Noble Classics version, that's like used to be $5 classic summer sale. That's the one I read the first time, and it was still awesome. It was still great. Like if you're scared of this length, which I get because it's like 1,200 pages or something like that. It's over 1,000 pages. It's a 1,065 pages. I would say like just read the 600-page one. Get a taster for it. Or honestly, the audiobook was awesome. And if you don't speak French, it sometimes helps for me, like I found with languages I'm not familiar with the names and stuff and pronunciations, to get some of it done by a person who actually knows how to speak the language. So I love this book. Definitely recommend the full version, but if you're scared of it, like it's better to read the abridged version than to not read it at all. The same energy is there. You just get a lot more of the intrigue and the drama and the scheming, I think, in this book. All right. We're going to grab a few at a time. In advance of the show that comes out today, I read The Silmarillion, which the part 3 of this is like the of the Rings of Power in the Third Age. So I think this is like where we're going to get some TV show content from. And I think this, like, to me, this read very much like the Bible, where there's like little individual short stories, and it's also a lot of listing of people's names. So I did do a lot of skimming of this book, but you know, I got the history. I'm ready for the TV show. That's what I read it for. I read Aldous Huxley's The Island, or just Island, sorry. It's another one of his, like, an outsider goes to a utopia, and it's not everything it seems. I really like this, though. I honestly don't remember Brave New World. I have read it. But this was a very good read. I was very intrigued by the island of Pala, an island community in Southeast Asia. And I was just very intrigued by what was going on there. So you should check it out if you like those kind of books. I read Sappho, Sung with Love, Poems and Fragments. I think this is one of the more complete collections of what's left of Sappho's writing. And I enjoy the little poems. It's the poems and lyrical tellings of stories and things like that. And it was just a delightful read. And Sapphic love comes from this person. So if you're into that, read the book. Get to the source. Garbage book. Do not read it. I finished it, and I hate myself for it. I will say there's a lot of trigger warnings in this book if you have any, like, issues with, like, reading or hearing about assault or violence against women or drug usage or, like, a lot of other things. Do not read this book. And even if you don't have trigger warnings against those things, don't read this book. I don't want to own it, but I don't want to donate it because I don't want a kid or, like, someone who's not prepared for what this book is going to be to read it. The movie is a lot less gruesome from what I've heard than the book, which is, I haven't seen the movie yet. That's why I read the book, as I was told to watch the movie. About halfway through the book, the murders begin. And it starts with the murder of also, if you don't like reading about the world's most racist, misogynistic, homophobic, like, white Wall Street bankers of the 80s and 90s, like, also don't read this book. But it starts with the murder of a homeless African-American man that's just very racist and just terrible. And then he murders a coworker who has an account he wants. And then he just brutally, like, tortures and murders women, most of which are, like, street workers and, like, sex workers, which is, there's nothing wrong with sex work. You gotta do what you gotta do. It's a valid line of work, and I think they should be more protected for reason as this shit in this book. So if any of that sounds like a good time to you, maybe go talk to somebody. Don't recommend it. At a certain point, I just stopped reading because there was a title called I Eat These Women, or chapter titled I'm Going to Eat These Women, and I was like, okay, we're done. On a happier note, I forgot that was in there, I read Milkfed by Melissa Broder. This book was very interesting. I didn't have a lot of expectations. It definitely does fall in the unhinged women category of books that everybody's trying to read this summer. And I enjoyed it a lot more than I thought I was going to. I am not Jewish, and there is a lot of, I think, Jewish cultural things that go on in this book, so I'm not going to speak to that, but I was very compelled by, like, this woman's relationship with food. And in no form or fashion is it healthy, so if that's something that triggers you, make sure you are aware of what's happening before you start reading the book. But it's also, like, it's a book of, like, self-discovery. It's a journey of, like, it's almost like a coming-of-age story, but it's definitely a lot. So I would recommend reading it for sure, but also making sure you're not going to be, like, affected by any of the stuff that happens in this book. She is 100% unhinged. And then this book, which is beautiful, look at her. Look at it, look at her. Scattered All Over the Earth by Yoka Tawada. This is translated from Japanese. I don't actually know if Yoka Tawada is a woman or not, but because it was recently Women in Translation Month, so I hope this counts. Unclear if it does or not. But also, I don't read books because they count. I just try and read more diversely anyways. But this book I thought was a really interesting study in, like, the evolution of language. And also it's a post-apocalyptic thing in the fashion that the land of sushi, as people in the book call it, or Japan in our present existence, no longer exists. So we meet a cast of characters who are kind of all connected through various means. But by the time we get to the end of the book, but, like, one of them is a girl who went to college in, I believe, Denmark, and, like, got a job there when she graduated, like, went to go home and the country was no longer there. By the time, like, between the time she, like, left for school and got her job, like, the country disappeared. It sunk or was overtaken by water, one of those two things. So a lot of the journey is, like, her and the group of people that are trying to find someone else where she can, like, use her mother tongue, so to speak. But then it also gets into the discussion of, like, what is a mother tongue and, like, why does that matter, and the evolution of language. And I thought it was very interesting. It wasn't, like, as post-apocalyptic as I wanted it to be, but it was a good, like, study, I think, on the evolution of language. So I enjoyed that immensely. I've talked about this book a few times in various videos, I think, but I also read Kurt Vonnegut's Sirens of Titans. I really liked this book. I think I read a lot of sci-fi this summer, clearly. So that's kind of funny because I've never really read a lot of sci-fi in my life before. Sirens of Time by Kurt Vonnegut. I really like this. This is like a space romp comedy thing. Like um, these people get us essentially like get sent on a quest or get like saved from a war, and then are just like, what the heck do we do now? What does this all mean? And there's this one character who's kind of like pulling all the strings of everybody else, and it's just really entertaining. And I think this one's less big brained than some of the other Kurt Vonnegut books. Like Slaughterhouse-Five is a great read that I think everybody should read, but that sometimes is a little complicated and convoluted. This one was like just fun and delightful to read. I next read another sci-fi book, Moon is a Harsh Mistress by Robert A. Heinlein. A good friend recommended this book to me. And this was kind of like, so there's a setting where there's a colony on the moon, and they're being oppressed by like the needs of Earth, and they're mostly sent there as exiles, as slaves, as prisoners to work and send resources back to Earth. So there is a revolution, and it's kind of like the journey of a few people in this hilarious like AI computer that's just like the best character in my opinion. How they kind of run a revolution, and I believe there's possibly, I'll try not to be too spoilery, but and hopefully have success with the revolution. I'll word it that way. It's a great book, and it kind of is it's a classic sci-fi for a reason. And like the last bit of the book is like, too many changes may go to that talk tonight and toss in some random numbers or not. Since boom started, quite a few young coppers have gone out to asteroids. Hear about some nice places out there, not too crowded. My word, I'm not even 100 yet. So first of all, you might notice that some of the language is interesting, which kind of what you'd expect to happen as people expand into space, language evolves. But it's also like, this seems like it's the beginning of like the expansion of the universe. And like how you get into the expanse, like where there's people in all the asteroid belts and all the different colonies. This is like a Kickstarter to like the expansive space opera books. And then I read Carmen Maria Machado's short story collection, Her Body and Other Parties. Mildly terrifying book. Very creepy, very kind of scary, but I really liked it, and I really like her writing style. I'm starting to read her books. I have her memoir somewhere. Don't know where it is, but I'm going to read that soon. I can't really say what exactly my favorite short story was, but they were all very good, very well written, very compelling, and a lot of them were quite terrifying. They are a lot of stories that are like about like the realities of women's lives and the violence that's often put on their bodies. So check trigger warnings before you read it if that's something you're going to be stressed out about. Dog is ready to come in. Stand by. And last 3 books, but not least. I don't have a number of books. I counted that at the beginning. It was like 28 or something. I read Lore Olympus Volume 2. I love the art style in here. It's incredible. It's a retelling of the Hades Persephone story. And it's just a great time. It started on Webtoon, but now it's out in print, and it's awesome. Definitely enjoyed it a lot. I read Malibu Rising by Taylor Jenkins Reid. I accidentally ordered the large print version of this book from Half Price Books Online. I didn't quite realize that when I got it. It was the cheapest one. This was a perfect, I think, like summer read. It just was like people in California, a party, and like, but everything is still not what it seems. So it was bigger than just like a party on a beach kind of book. It was a story of a family and like what everybody's sacrificed for each other because of the shortfallings of the parents and stuff like that, and like how everybody grows from what they've been through now that they've talked about everything. And also it's a baller sounding party, and like there's a good amount of surfing that happens in the book. So just aesthetics all over the place for summer fun. And lastly, I read the nonfiction book by Rick Emerson, Unmask Alice, LSD, Satanic Panic, and the imposter behind the world's most notorious diaries. I think most people, myself included, read Go Ask Alice as like a 7th grader or like some age that's probably too young for some of the content that is in that book. But I recently listened to the You're Wrong About podcast episode book club series that was featuring Carmen Maria Machado, which is why I started reading her stuff. And the final episode had this author on here. And that podcast is great in terms of they try to debunk things that people misunderstand. And they were kind of debunking a lot of the content in this book, in the original book. And then the one thing they didn't tell us was like, was Alice real? Was the girl from the stories real? And this book kind of gets into it definitely, this book answers the question, not in like a clear yes or no necessarily, but in a way that is satisfying and like realistic to like what you would expect and stuff like that. And this is definitely a really interesting read. It's kind of even broken down how Go Ask Alice is, like, with the cool little diary entry titles and stuff like that. And it was very easy nonfiction read. Like, if you read that book and you want to like kind of get into what really happened, what was going on in the actual author's head, a lady from a Mormon area in Utah, and kind of just see like what the influence of her creating and expanding on this character really did to society. That book was one of the books that like really helped like the war on drugs kick itself off. And then other of her subsequent diaries of children that she found and met like really inspired like the Satanic Panic and like got a lot of visibility and like ruined real people's lives. So everybody should read this and kind of maybe be upset at that author for various reasons, but her name is Beatrice Sparks, by the way. But yeah, it was a very good informative read, and if you were affected by Go Ask Alice in the 7th grade or whatever, maybe read this book so you know what actually happened. And also listen to the podcast because it's very interesting and they really break down how it doesn't make any sense that she starts off with LSD, does all these other drugs, but marijuana is the real kicker that makes her lose her mind. That's it on my hot takes, and that is the books that I've read this summer. The only book that I've been kind of reading throughout the summer, not making very much progress on, with the exception of like the last week and a half, I've been like really trying to read it, is Don Quixote by Cervantes. So that one will continue being read. It is very long. And the reason it was taking me so long at the beginning is because I was trying to read it in English and Spanish, like at the same Spanish, and then like if I needed looking up information I would go to the reference the book in English. The problem with that was that it's kind of like reading the old English version of Spanish and Spain Spanish at that, like a very formalized writing that is beyond my ability with Spanish speaking and reading. So I realized that was not going to be I was not going to be very successful at reading that, and it was making me not excited to read it. So I'm back focusing on just the English version of the book. Hi, puppy. How are you? And that's helped progress really speed up. So I'm hoping to finish that book in September, along with the previous video I posted on this channel is my Becca's Book-Athon read-a-thon, which starts today on September 1st. So I will be reading those 4 books, maybe doing some more rolls if I finish them, and also keep on trekking with Don Quixote. So let me know what your favorite books you read this summer are. I read a lot. There was a lot of good ones. There's a lot of weird ones. And there was some good mediocre content as well. So happy reading. Enjoy your coffee. Enjoy the rest of your day. Let me know what your favorite summer books were and what you're reading as we transition into the fall season. Bye!